Ester Brooks, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to have a conversation with you, and just it's gonna go really fast. So we better
Yeah, take
start
advantage.
with important things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think for our audience, I want to kind of give the backstory of how I went about or why I went about reaching out to you. So your husband, Arthur, very well known, accomplished, and seems to be just about everywhere. And I follow him on social media and such, and uh, I really like the things that he says, a lot of wisdom. And then as you know, you're seeing things come up in your feed, there was an interview with both of you. And I'm thinking, well, this is interesting. This must be his wife. And then you were talking about marriage. And then you said something about how, and I may get this a little wrong, maybe a lot, that you had to reprioritize things in your marriage, as in you needed to move Arthur down to the second place and God had to be first. And I sat there, Esther, and I'm going, man, I would love to talk to her. And nothing against Arthur or
Right.
anything, but I was thinking, I want to talk to her because that's such a profound statement. And even beyond the profoundness of it, is that that's not an easy lift in marriage. And speaking from my perspective of being married 35 years, it, it's it's a bit of a lift. So for our audience purposes and just maybe as we start here today, can you talk a little bit about what brought you to that place of feeling the need to do that?
Yeah. Oof, that's a big question, and so there was a point in our marriage when we met at the beginning. We just fell in love, like everybody, not everybody, but like most people that get married first, they
Right.
fall in love, and
Mhm.
so there was it was after the beginning, the infatuation and the craziness and everything, like things calm down. So then you start like that's what real love begins, right? And you start really knowing each other, and then I noticed, like decades after that, that what I was doing was not really love. One of the things that I was trying to do a lot was to try to change my husband, try to
Mhm.
make him into what I would like him to be instead of loving him. I noticed that I was completely dependent on him for my happiness, for my peace. And if he didn't do exactly what I needed, and at the time that I needed it, I was not happy and upset, and so I realized I was asking a lot of him. I was asking perfection. I was asking things that humanly were not possible. So, and that also coincided with the time when I went and I practiced my faith a little bit deeper every day and every month and every year. And then I realized, what I am asked to do in my marriage is not just to live together, just to spend time together and have fun together, but it was something a lot deeper. It was to love. And in order to love selfishly without expecting anything in return, that's humanly, that's very difficult. I would say impossible, because we are human beings and we are not perfect. So in order to love him better, deeper, and really love him, in order to will his good at all times, not just
Mhm.
my good, not just what I needed in that moment, not just what would make me happy. No, 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 no. In order to love him, to will his good, I needed to let go of these expectations and these demands that I had with him. There is this needy attitude towards him, and I needed put him in second place and let God give me what I really needed, that
Wow.
only God can give me, right?
Wow. So,
And
Esther, if
so
I could, for a moment,
that's a long
as you're
answer.
talking about that, um, so did you guys come to like a mutual decision to do that, or was it a surprise to Arthur when you
Yeah,
like?
it was a little bit of a shock, and it was a transition,
Mhm.
and it didn't but it was a little bit like a death, like
Mm,
that idol, because I had idealized my husband. That idol, was dying. I wanted
mhm.
to kill that idol, and I
Yeah.
wanted to put my priorities in the right way. So let God fill my heart with his love, with his divine love, so that I could love my husband better with a divine love. That was the whole idea. Of course, it's very easy to say. It's a different thing to do it, okay? That's an idea. How
Yes.
does that look in the practice? I'm still figuring this out. But what happened is, then I told him, I said, look, sweetie, I realized that I'm always mad at you. I'm always needy. I always expect you to make me happy and you to do what I want. I need to stop this. No, this is not good for anybody. So I think that I'm just going to stop thinking so much about you. And I'm going to just pray more, ask God for help, so that I can help you better with God's help, and I can love you better with God. And he was like, "Okay, that's great, but wait a minute. So I'm not your hero anymore. I'm not your." And I said, "No, no, no. You're still top, 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 but God first." And then I understand, because I didn't come from a religious family, a practicing family. I
Mhm.
understand now the real reason why a lot of people say God first, God first, God first. You always sound to me like, oh my gosh, no, first you need to love the people around you. Yeah, yeah, but if you don't have that grace from God, you cannot love at the deepest level. You cannot love profoundly.
Uh-huh.
You cannot detach from your needs and your, all these attachments that make you not loving and kind of like selfish. So yeah, so that's the way it happened. So he was not very happy. It was like a death of that idol, that I had
Sure.
made throughout decades, and it kind of died. But then we realized that there was a difference, that we had allowed God to be in our marriage, and that made a big difference. And I mean, I don't know if he idealized me. I don't know what he would say, but I think that it has helped both of us to be better for each other and to love better.
Yeah, because it's so interesting to me when I think about, when we were married, I probably thought I was the greatest. I was the most humble. I was the most giving and the most caring. And then it didn't take very long for me, or maybe even more for her, to realize that, well, maybe not so much. And I think in some ways, we all kind of come into it with this idealistic perspective of what this other person will be, as well as how they will see, you know, you, or in
Right.
this case with me, right? Um, and then you build this persona over time, right? Because I know for me, it was kind of like, well, if you're expecting me to be the hero, then I've got to go out and slay all the dragons. And then, as in your case, it's very uncanny when there's this realization, I can't meet that expectation. And then you're kind of like, wow, okay, so then what do we do? But to your point, with us, it was, we had to shift the priority. So let me ask you this, Esther. When you look back on it now, what are some of the, or a few of the big wins or value that you gained from making this decision in your relationship?
Day and night, day and night, because Another thing that I discovered is that, going back to the point that I don't know if you guys don't do that so much, but I think women, we always have an idea of what we want you guys to be for us and you guys to do
Mhm.
for us, and and then we keep trying to make you into that,
Yeah.
and and that kind of, you cannot love that, an idea of something, and you cannot love a person that you don't really know. Like, if, like, in order to love my husband, I need to know him. And
Mm.
so, what do I mean for that? Because you cannot love something you don't know. So, so you first meet a person, fall in love, and then you start knowing that person, and you fall in love. Oh, I love this personality, what he does. But then, once you know that part, which is a little bit more the external part, a lot of times we stop learning about each other. That curiosity stops. And that's when we start manipulating and trying to change people and trying to, and then we go back to ourselves and what we need. So then I realized, well, why is he irritating me when he doesn't answer me? For example,
Mhm.
why? I would like him, when I ask him a question, to answer me right away. And my
Mhm.
husband is the kind of husband that sometimes he doesn't answer. Well, it used to drive me crazy. And then I would look at him and I would see him, he's sitting on a couch and he's like reading something. Said, well, he's right here, he can hear me. Okay, why is he not? So that would be like I would explode. Why are you not listening to me? Can you answer me right away? I'm asking you what you want for dinner. Why can you not answer me right now? It's something for you. So it would go on and on and on. It's a
Mhm.
silly example. But then I started thinking, okay, why is he not listening? Or why is he not answering? Then I looked at him and I realized he was in his thoughts. He was thinking probably big ideas. He was resting because he just came back from a trip. He was kind of like in a state of, I don't know what to call it, of like just reflecting, thinking. He
Mhm.
probably didn't hear me. He actually did not hear me. He didn't do it on purpose. He was actually thinking. And my husband is a very like, this kind of like, I mean, all of you guys usually like it's a one purpose thing. We women, we see everything, we hear everything. We are so we can know how people feel immediately, how what they are thinking. Kind of, you guys have one thing and you focus on one thing, and so instead of getting irritated, I just said, well, that's how he is. And this is why he does things so good. And he's able to express himself and write and do what he does so well. And so what happened is I learned something about him. I knew him a little better in that moment. And that made me love him more. So
Oh,
instead of reacting to, why is he not answering me? Something about me, my needs, my attachment. I just switched and I said, no, no, no. What is happening right here? He's not doing this on purpose. He's not doing this to irritate me. And what is he doing? And then I started looking at him with a different intention, with a different attitude. And then I looked at him to know him. And
yeah.
that's to love somebody. And this is just a little example. And that's an easy one, right? With other things, maybe not.
Oh,
But
it's fabulous.
it just showed me that that's what I need to do more. All these things that I'm always trying, I want you to answer me right away because it irritates me. No, no, let's change the perspective. This is not about me. This is about willing his good. How can I love him better? The first thing we have to do is to learn more about the person, to know more about the person, how he is. So yeah.
Yeah, that's gold. I mean, talk about value because I think, you mentioned about the halting of curiosity. I think that's very powerful because I know, at least in my case, sometimes that halting was rooted around, I'm not so sure I really want to see what might be further below the surface, right? Because, right, because you, to your point, we're all selfish. We,
Right.
I had this kind of joking conversation with my wife where she was talking about, I don't understand why our son, and he doesn't, and he wants always to be like this. And I said, honey, quite frankly, if we were all honest, we wake up every day expecting the world to just cater to everything we want, when we
Yeah.
want it, how we
Right.
want it, on and on,
Right.
because that's kind of from a human standpoint how we're made. But I take it just from your experience, it takes intentional getting to know someone, would you say?
Totally. Totally. And like you talk about your son, the same thing happened with my sons. I would get irritated when they would come in the house and they were dirty. They would make the house dirty, and they would bring me a frog or a snake in the house, look, or a mouse or something, or they would climb a tree really high. And then I thought, but that's so good. That's so brave. That's so like we just need to focus that energy. But that's a good thing. I shouldn't get irritated because they are being boys. They're not doing anything bad. They didn't come dirty so that I would get mad. They came dirty because he was excited to show me that he had a frog. He had caught a frog, and that's we need brave men. We don't, we need to support this kind of brave behaviors that channel it and make sure that they do it right. But that's a good instinct that men have of adventure and taking risks and all, which is all very positive and good. So the same
Mm,
thing. And I think a problem that we have is that right in our culture today, we're told that men and women are the same, and we're not the same. We're so different. And I think
mhm.
we want to love each other better. We need to first start there. As different, we're so different as men and women to begin with. Let's start there, and then let's go into the person and understand deeper and deeper how we are different, instead of trying to make everybody the same, because then we lose
Yeah,
so much. We need everything. We need all the
yeah,
different kinds of ways of behaving and thinking and approaching problems and solving problems, and we need
yeah.
all of it.
It's interesting because I want to kind of draw into the relationships like with our children. Um, and one of the things that we did is that we made a commitment that we were not going to allow our children to rise up in that priority level to where they were the center of our universe, right? If I can say it that way. And it was hard because, as you know, being a mother and in my case a father, but it works as a parent, and you're raising them. Mine are 24 and 27, but it's it's one of those dynamics of, oh my gosh, you mean I need to just, like, we're going to go on a date once a month or once a week, and they're going to need to be okay with a sitter, because we need to make our marriage the priority, right? Um,
Absolutely.
and then I know some of our friend groups. I mean, it was beyond difficult because some of them now in the same strata of age as we are finding it very difficult to let them be independent adults, right? Did you experience a difficulty in sort of reprioritizing them as well?
Well, I think that's a problem that a lot of moms have, especially moms,
Mm,
that we put our kids first. When our kids are born, then you guys are just not second, like you're just at the end of the list. The kids first, and that's a big mistake. That's a
mm,
big mistake. There's nothing that is better that you can do for your kids that for them to see that the couple, that the marriage is strong, that
mhm,
you love each other, that I don't know, somebody said, a friend of mine, yeah, a friend of mine in Spain said, it's a hug between the father and the mother is way more valuable for a child than 100 hugs to the child, because like for that the security that it gives the child to have that love, right, the parents
mm.
love is very, very important. So yeah, totally. But women, when we have kids, we fall in love with our kids. We totally fall in love. It's like the whole oxytocin thing. It's
Yes,
crazy.
sure.
it,
Yeah.
it makes us into maniacs for our kids. And
Mhm.
but that those hormones calm down a little bit, and in the beginning it's normal because that child depends on us for
Yep.
survival. Right? It's good. It like nature is very smart and it makes us like that. But then we kind of keep going on and on it, right? And we
Hmm.
are all like super educated, super, we know about everything, and so our world is our children, and then we forget our husbands. And San Jose Maria used to say, "Your husband is your first child," so you should never forget that you have to take care of your husband because he needs you, and you guys, it looks like you're so tough and everything, but you're sensitive beings, like all of us, we are, and so you need us, you need your wives, and so we should not put you on the side when the kids come. It's like it's super important. Also, we have kids for a very little time, but the couple stays together, and it's our way together through life. We start, and then we have a family, which is a big project that we do together, but then the kids go away. They shouldn't stay home in the basement until they're 50. They go away, and then we are left alone again. And it's kind of, we start again and new projects and new adventures together. But what happens a lot of times is that the children is kind of the only thing that keeps couples together, and then when the
Yeah.
children go away, then the couples kind of, they have nothing in common, nothing meaningful to bring them together. That's what it's a phenomenon that is happening right now, right? They call it the
Hmm.
great divorce. And actually, Arthur and I are doing a retreat at the end of this month on couples, and we talk a little bit about that, about how we can keep meaning in our marriages after the kids. Because now
Yeah.
we're very healthy and young for a long time. We have a lot of time after the kids leave to do our things, right? And so it's important to think about it and prepare for it.
Well, you know what's interesting, Esther? My wife and I and our son, we had a tremendous valley experience in late 2024. Our audience, those that are with us, they probably will remember this story. My son was in a near fatal car accident. And it was one of those, right, where it was the milestones. Is he going to live? Is he
Oh,
going to
wow.
be able to? I mean, it was horrifying. And thankfully, after probably a good solid year or so of surgeries and physical
Wow.
therapy and all of the above, he's come out on the other side and he's doing great.
Wow.
But it
But
but it did, besides all of the other things that come with that kind of situation, it did kind of reframe for me because there was that crossroads, right? Because there was a part of me that saw him as delicate, right? That I need to protect him. I need to, and my wife as well. Hey, maybe you shouldn't start that right now. Maybe you should wait. And I could feel that pull. It was that pull of that father, because quite frankly, I probably was seeing him as an 8-year-old, even though he
right,
was 24, right? And I'm confident it was God whispering in my ear, he is an eagle, Eric, and he needs to get back in the air. That's where he belongs, not in your nest. And it was, I could feel God's arms around me just saying, I know it's hard. I know it's difficult, but you got to let him get back in the air. One of the toughest transitions I've ever gone through. I don't think I would have been positioned to do that if my wife and I had made our kids the center point, right? So to what you were just describing, it, it comes so in it was a resource that we built without even knowing the resources were being built, right?
right.
And it was so important. Um, so
Yeah,
let me
because I think, go back to
no,
your
go,
point,
please, please.
it's very important, the why of children, because now maybe today people think, oh, we have children because we want, because I desire, because, and that's not it. We are given children. I think God gives us children so that we train them the best we can, so that we help them, we raise them, we educate them, but they're not really us, ours. These are God's children. And what we do is just do the best that we can, and then we just say, okay, now let them fly, like you say, right? That's our role, is to prepare them so that they can fly, not just to make them useless. It's just to prepare them so that, but we are, my husband and I, when our kids misbehaved, and the teenage years, and that
Oh
they make
yeah.
us suffer so much, and we were desperate, and oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And then we had a thing going always, that when I discovered that they were not our children, that they were God's children. So then we would say, oh wait, okay, God, you have a problem with your child. Just let me know how I can help you. Okay. You know, so it kind of, it's true. It's true. They are God's children. How can I help? That's all we can do. We cannot force anything. We can just help, educate, but we cannot control all the time, especially when they are older, right? But
Yeah.
that starts when they are younger, like you said before. Even little kids, if they are overprotected, we're not doing them any favor. We're not training
No.
them for life, because life is hard, and also
Hmm.
we could die and not be there anymore, and they have
True.
to figure out, and the sooner the better. So yeah.
Yeah, and Esther, and typically we'd never let an episode go by without a musical reference, and I'm going to keep the streak going. And this relates to our children, and specifically my son in that situation, and it can apply across. Is there's a song that has a line in it, and it's very odd that it was inserted in this verse, but it goes, "Behold, here cometh the dreamer. What will become of his dreams?" And I have a bias because I tend to be a dreamer, but I thought about it as you were talking. It's like him flying in the air as an eagle is setting himself up for those dreams. Now, obviously, what he does with it and how he does it, that's his thing because he's an adult. But I feel like in many ways it's to your point, they're God's, and God has a dream for them, and it's my job as a father, as this example, to help that come to birth. It's not about me and
Right.
about my wants, desires. It's about Him. Um, but
Mhm.
yeah, wow, so good. Um, so let me pivot. I want to talk a little bit about. I know that faith is a very central part, and maybe for our audience, they've already picked up that it's a strong part of your life. But I'm going to go in a maybe a little different direction with it. As you give talks in many different places, I know you do that with Arthur. But what's been most surprising to you as far as how people have received your faith walk or your faith story?
um the most surprising thing, and I don't know why it's surprising, we do and I do talks in secular places, and Arthur and I do also a lot of in secular, but what people always end up asking us is about our faith. We all, our hearts are restless until they rest in God. That's what Saint Augustine said, right?
Mhm.
We all are searching for God, for our Creator, for which is what brings us peace and happiness. And so even though we a lot of times, so we don't talk about faith, we talk about different science or data, what data says and what studies say and research and everything, but the questions usually end up being about how to apply that to your faith, how do you live that with faith, etc.
Mhm.
That's the most surprising thing. But it doesn't surprise me anymore, but that surprised me at the beginning. So why are we like, why? And that's why, because we're all searching, and we all search in different ways, in different places, and sometimes we search in the wrong places. But we're
Mhm.
all searching for that fulfillment in our hearts. So that's surprising, but not so
That
much.
is. And do you find that, because to your point, there is a lot of science in the things that you talk about, both you and Arthur, and it would be an easy conclusion to go, oh, they're probably more interested on, okay, so what do I need to do to, since that study says that I need to calm myself, or since that
Yeah.
study said, hey, I need to breathe better or do better breath work. Um, what do you think is the root that may be the reason why they're asking about your faith, even without you sort of soliciting that?
Well, that's because our hearts are restless. All of
Ah,
us.
yes, back
We're
to what you were
all
saying.
searching. Yeah, we're all searching, and we a lot of our lives we are lost. I was lost for 40 years or more, just thinking, no, I can fulfill my heart, do being a good person. Yeah, but there's something missing. I can find peace like doing meditation. Yeah, but for me, I needed to get really closer to God. That's what that and for all of us, we need that. That's what drives us. That's that restlessness that I think we all have, and try to find the thing that is going to give us peace. And so we start looking in the wrong places. We start looking in science. Is science going to bring me? But that's a normal thing, right? You want to learn
Sure.
how can I have a
Yeah.
better life? But then the deeper and deeper you go, you always end up in the heart, and the heart, the human heart, right? That's where we have, like, that's what we're. I'm very interested about this subject, about the heart. What is the heart? What is the heart in the Hebrew Bible, in the New Testament, in Hinduism, in
Mhm.
all the spirituality in the world, the human heart. It's so to me it's so interesting. I come from a culture where everything is about the emotions, the passion. I'm from Spain. Everything is
Mhm.
like, if you feel this, if you feel it in your heart, you really must do it, no matter what. But that can get you to a lot of trouble. That can
Yeah.
get you to a place where you can hurt a lot of people. You can hurt yourself. You can, and so we have to understand our hearts better. Our heart is where we know, we learn things. We have the intellect is part of the heart, our memory, our understanding of things, the wisdom. Then we have the place of the desire, of what we yearn for. That's in our heart, right? And then we have the free will. That's where we choose, we act from our heart. So the heart is not just impulses or emotionality or a strong passion. No, the heart is the center of the person, where everything comes from. That's who we are. The heart is who we are, and but it has to have all these different aspects of the person, that the human person, right? It's not just the emotionality of it. And so that's why it's so interesting to me, because I've seen that people everywhere, they're acting driven by those emotions, and they leave everything. And so it's important to learn about, no, there's a lot more, no, and always in the pursuit of the good. And when you do that, that's when your heart kind of finds that peace, and gets a little bit closer to the divine.
So that restlessness ceases and you begin to walk in peace. And I would also say too, Esther, to your point, you did wonderful in indicating that there's nothing wrong with science. It's not bad.
It's good,
And
yeah.
right, I mean, it's vital, right? I think sometimes this comes back to, for me, the idea about gaining more and more self-knowledge. And I get it. I know for some that can be a difficult journey because they may be dealing with issues of shame, right? Hey, I messed up 10 years ago and I shouldn't have said this or I shouldn't have done that. I'm of the mind, it's like, why don't we set judgment aside and just be curious? Just get to know maybe what was going on with yourself when you made that decision or when you
Right.
chose that. It's not a because we all have fallen and all have messed up. So it's this embrace of like I want to, and I've used this in conversation and talks, is that I want to get to know Eric Pennington better and better, because the better I know me, it sets me up to be the best father, best husband, best
Yeah.
business partner, whatever I can be.
Yeah.
The trouble I got into, Esther, was when I was playing a role. When I was, okay, I'm going to let you see this much, but not this. And I'll let you see this much, but we're going to keep that at bay because I don't want you to think I'm not fill in the blank. And it was such a, it was so much, it was exhausting, right? It was just exhausting because you
Because you were
can't.
not yourself. You
Right,
were not yourself.
exactly. Exactly.
And that's
And again,
exhausting.
I have deep empathy for those that would say, or those that feel like, but I, man, I just don't, I 20 years ago, 10 years ago, all of that. And it's like, man, if I could, and I think this is a connector to addressing that restlessness, that pursuit, right? Because God doesn't see us as this series of mistakes and misjudgments and bad choices, right? And I know for us, when we in the work that we do, we're trying to encourage people that is deepen that self knowledge because it opens up doors for you.
That's right.
Um, so I want to talk a little bit about what I think, and purely observational on my end. It seems like we have a loneliness epidemic. And I want to describe it, Esther, from the perspective that maybe connects to some of the things you were just saying. This idea that even though technologically it seems like we're more connected than ever, but yet at the same time, it seems that the loneliness is rising even faster than that, right? What are your perspectives about loneliness and what you see in your interactions, whether it be in the close circles or even out into when you're with the world at large?
Yeah. My husband talks a lot about that, the part, the science behind all
Yeah.
of that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not very good at the science, but I totally agree. And not only technology, but we went through COVID, and COVID was it hit really hard, especially younger people. That
Mhm.
we had a daughter that was in high school during COVID, and she did not see anybody for a year and a half because her school was canceled. Everything was online. Everything we were. She was home all day. So that time when teenagers learn how to make new friendships, how they start driving, they are more independent. They go out on their own, and she missed all of that, right? And like her people, her generation, and that was really really bad. It's kind of, there was a development in them. I'm not a psychologist, but it was obvious that there was a very important part of her development that was stopped. And so that was really bad. Technology, of course, it's substituting real relationships. And the human beings, we need real relationships. We need in
Mhm.
person. We need the eye contact, and we need the touch, and we need the voice right next to us, and we need the all of that personal interaction. And this is being substituting with technology, and it's not the
Mhm.
same. um, it is true that technology can connect us more, like on the other side of the world. And okay, oh,
Mhm.
I'm texting, I'm coming now, in 10 minutes I'll be home. That's great. Or
Mhm.
just like but we do not really pay attention to what's really important, which is the personal relationships. And it's, you see a party with teenagers and everybody's looking at their phones in a party with teenagers. 20 years ago, you would go a party with teenagers, everybody was on top of each other and just talking and screaming and yelling and dancing, and
Yeah.
everybody. And so there's this I think it's, I am an older person, and I
Mhm.
have a little bit of a problem with addiction with my phone, because once I start looking at my phone, it's hard for me to put it down. So imagine a younger person who has not the maturity to discern this problem, and who
Yeah.
grew up with phones, and they cannot put it down. And that is substituting for real relationships, person to person. So yeah, it's a big problem. And I
Yeah.
think what's the solution? I don't know, because we are not going to not use
Right.
phones, because they are very helpful for a lot of things. We just not to we have to figure out a way in which we have a balance with their
Mhm.
use. And
Yeah.
I know a lot of people have, when you come into the house, you leave the phone in a basket, or when we're eating, no phones, or at night, no. There's a lot of things we can do, but it is really hard, because it is hard for me. I can't even imagine for a younger person how
Mhm.
are they going to do that, right? But I'm optimistic that human beings have always had problems with things. This is just one more, and we have always been able to get a solution. But a lot of people in the way are getting all messed up, and
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's sad. It's a problem. It's a real
Well,
problem.
and I'm almost from that perspective that, as human beings, it's almost primal, our need for social
Yeah.
connection and interaction with other human beings. And I've been lately trying to, uh, as far as incorporating this into the work, is that, there's this worn out statement about it's not the destination, it's the journey, right?
Mhm.
And it's been said probably a million times, right? But if you really kind of open that up and look deeper into it, it is that journey part where that's where we become who we are. And I don't get me wrong, there's certainly things on the journey I don't like. The unexpected email of, well, we need this now, or, oh, I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to do that anymore. All the stuff that comes with it, the ups and the downs. But I'm hoping, and this is kind of my optimism, is that more and more people will understand, you know, life is a gift, and the gold in that gift is found in those moments in between the destination, not the destination, right?
Totally.
Because
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Esther, it's like anything that I was so focused on as far as a destination, when I got there, all right, I got the quick dopamine hit, but then it was kind of like, well, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what now? You know?
Yeah.
And and I think oftentimes what happens, we miss all that happened in between, you know? And I just give you just a quick story that came to my mind. There's an arboretum near where I live, and my wife and I go there all the time. It is one of the most beautiful places. I haven't been all over the world, but I would almost say it's got to be one of the most beautiful places in the world. So when I
Where
was
is
in my
it?
it's a place called Dawes Arboretum, and it's near a small. Surrounded by farmland, but it's like a, I don't know. It's probably got 100, 200 acres of an arboretum. Has a Japanese garden. I mean, it's beautiful, and I've been going there for decades. And in the time when I was in the corporate world, I would go there, but I was so preoccupied with the next thing and the
Yeah.
meeting and, okay, what's coming up on Friday and what am I going to say when, and I would pass this particular tree, right? And I would never stop. I would, yeah, that's a tree. Okay, great. And then keep moving, right? Right. And then as things transformed in my life, as I kind of went through a bit of I call it God's reformation, I went back there in this summer. This was like 2 years ago. And I stopped and I looked at this tree. It was just blooming. And I was like, this tree has been here all this time. And if it felt like, and I know this may sound a little weird for our audience, it felt like that tree was saying, I'm glad you slowed down. Here I am. you know and I think, Esther, if we can kind of encourage that as an intentional behavior, I think
Yeah.
it will help us with all of this technology, right? to be able to say, yeah, I get it. I can type into my AI chatbot and get an answer, but that can wait. I'm gonna slow down and I'm gonna pay attention. Um,
I would
so
like to. Okay, you touched a lot of things here, but I just would like to add two things.
sure.
The Yeah, the goals in life, professional goals, those are great, and they keep us motivated and everything. But I think the biggest goal of all is your person. What kind of a person you are. And
Mhm.
for me and for my faith, how much have you loved in your life? I think that's my goal. My goal is not like how many talks I've done or how many books or how many, nothing. My goal is how much have I loved in my life. At the
Mm.
end, at the end of the times, we will be judged by our love. Saint John of the Cross said that. Everything else will will pass. Everything that passes, but love is eternal. So I
Yeah.
think the goal as human beings is love. This is why relationships are so important, because you
Mm.
cannot love a project the same way you can love a person, right? You cannot
Yeah.
love, and so we are supposed to love God and our neighbor, not not fame, not power, not money, not all these things, but just
Mm.
a person, a creature of God, right? That's our goal in life, and so everything else should be secondary. But that usually we don't do that. We just focus all our energy and everything, and we miss all those moments, like you said, in which we had opportunities to love. And that's
Mm.
the second point. We have a tendency, especially, I mean, all of us, but you men are very goal oriented, and so sometimes you live in the future. You just think about the future, and so you forget to be present,
Yep.
being present. That's it, because the future we don't know. You know, we might not be here the next hour with something. We're here present today. The present, most importantly, is the only time where we can love. We cannot love in the future. We cannot, and the future gives us anxiety. The future war, it gives us energy too, but there is a lot of thing, but it distracts us from the most important thing that we are called to do in this life, which is to love.
Yeah.
um,
Wow.
Also, only in the present you can pray. Only in the present you can have a connection with God. And the present is the closest time to eternity, you know. But we have a tendency to just like, have you read C.S. Lewis, The Screw Tape Letters?
I have not, but my wife has, and she's told me about some of these stories that came out of that book.
It's a wonderful book. If you have not, there are little stories. There are
Mhm.
letters of the devil to his nephew,
Yes. Yep.
and the nephew is in the earth tempting human beings.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So C.S. Lewis was an author, a British Anglican, and a great genius. And so one of the letters that the devil sends his nephew is talking about this. He says, our role as devils is to keep the humans away from the present, because when they are thinking about the past, they're thinking about they get melancholic. The past was better when my kids were little. It was so much better, and now and they're not satisfied with the present or the future, because the future brings all this anxiety and these doubts about what's going to happen and everything. So the devil says, keep the human beings either in the past or in the future. Make sure they're never in the present. And so it is true and the devil is so good at keeping us in the past or in the present. But what we have to fight that and be in the present. I think
Yeah.
this is what, in my life, with my experience in my own personal life, that's what I found, that we need to live in the present. and loving in the present. And loving doesn't mean only romantically. Loving means loving the people you have next to you in the moment, the Uber driver, the
Yep.
colleague, the person in the cashier, loving your friends, loving your parents, loving of course, your children, your family. But it's just to do something good for another person. That's what should drive us. And even your work, you can think about how your work is going to be good for other people. That you can do that in the present, just always keeping this what I'm going to do, this podcast, whatever. How am I loving people but by doing this podcast right now? Are
Yeah.
we doing this for the good of somebody? Yes, that's why I'm doing this. And so that's the
Yep.
answer. That should be the goal always.
Oh my gosh. You've pretty much, Esther, you said you weren't sure about what was the solve, but I think if we had a course on what you just described, that would help some of that loneliness and our somewhat obsessive nature with technology,
Yeah,
because um I I can tell you just from my own personal experience, the version I was 20 years ago versus the version now, where now I do slow down. Now do all that I can to stay in the present. I pay attention versus a time when I just let so much go by me. Yeah, you're right. It's motivated by love, and quite frankly, it's a love for all of God's creation. It's nature. That tree that I mentioned, and if I had a photograph, I'd send it to you. I'd show you. It's a beautiful. I mean, it's a
yeah,
work of art, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
its value is found in me slowing down to pay attention long enough to absorb that.
yeah.
I think that's one of the key ways. Um, I want to shift because I know our time is short here. What or who is inspiring you in this current frame that we're in?
God.
Okay.
I mean, I have a lot of inspiration from a lot of people, but
Yeah.
I think um, I always go back to God.
Hmm.
Um, I always want to love more and know more, and so yeah, that would be my answer.
Okay, that's a great answer.
You
And
can look
oh,
like
it's fine. No, I mean it's obvious. Even just when we were talking, there's so many things that come out unspoken, right, or not, or that are implied as to what inspires you. And I think your example about, I'm going to go back to the love thing. If we're some might say, well, yeah, Eric, it's easy to love your spouse and your kids. And I would grant you, yeah,
not
at a
always,
degree. Not
not
always,
always.
yes, right. But, on the whole, and I get it. And I had this example this past week. I mean, I'm in a hardware store just buying, I don't know, I think I was buying some kind of lawn care thing. And the kid that was behind the cashier I could tell he wasn't very happy. And the way he would treat the customer in front of me, it was sort of this, yeah, okay, well, yeah, there you go. Here, you want the receipt? Okay, and move on. And he delivered that same to me, right? And I'm thinking, Esther, you know, I'm going to ask him, how's your day going? And here's what's interesting. He answered, but it wasn't some, oh, I'm so glad you asked me. So many people would just walk past. It wasn't anything Hollywood. He still was pretty low key, but that's not the point. The point is not what did I get. The point is what will I give, right? And I'm not my role, my job is not to monitor the return back. I mean, for all I know, maybe somewhere later on that night he thought about, wow, that guy
Right,
was he took some time to ask me how my day was.
right,
And
right.
maybe
You
he
never know.
didn't.
Yeah,
But it
you never.
doesn't
You will never
that's
know.
not,
Yeah,
yeah, it's not mine.
that's
It's
not why
not
you do
mine.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's not why
and
you do it.
you want to talk about lifting the weight of all of these, what I call them, the world system's expectations. It's when you can just give it away. Give your
Yeah.
love away.
Yeah.
Contribute. Just give it away. And you know what, for me, Esther, it has helped me so much to be able to go, you know what? I'm going to prepare and I'm going to put together as best I can, and then I'm going to give it away. Once I give it away, I don't take it back.
Right.
And that is just, it's liberating.
Yeah.
Um, so as we get close to the end of our time together, what are you working on now that has got you excited, whether it's within your work with Arthur or just individually or anything else that our audience might be excited about too?
Yeah. Well, the thing that we are preparing now for is this retreat for
Yeah.
couples.
Yeah.
At the end of June, we're doing that. We are we're going to be. We have a lot of things together, doing things for couples. So that's very exciting because
Mhm.
we're trying. We have done talks before, but never a retreat like this. So there's like multiple talks and activities and things. So this is super exciting because
Mhm.
also we're working together, and that's good too. We're kind of complementing things, and it's hard, but it is also very satisfying. And
Mhm.
it's one of the projects, of the after kids, empty nesters, and then we're doing things together. That gives me a lot of energy, and it's super exciting. The other thing that is very exciting is that I'm thinking about. I just finished my master's in theology in May. I just
Mhm.
graduated, and now I'm thinking about my next thing, and I'm doing research on the heart, and so learning more about what's the human heart and how to understand it better, so that I would like to help people understand how what's going on in the heart and how we can love better. I'm very interested in love. And that's the
Yes, yes, that's
um,
awesome. That's
and
awesome.
so that like real love that requires action, requires a pure heart, pure intention,
Mhm.
that not just emotional only. I mean,
Right,
there are emotions too, and they accompany it. But that's
right.
what I really I'm really interested in helping young people understand this, understand that you don't need to that Jesus didn't tell us that we need to like everybody. He told us we need to love everybody, even if we
Mhm.
don't like them and their people are not the way we would like. Or no, we need to love. And yeah, and I experienced that like in my marriage, right? Some things I don't like, but I'm supposed to love. So how can I love more? So just no. And I have kids, right? And so my youngest daughter is in the Marine Corps, and so I always tell her, you're going to meet people and you might not like them, but you still have to love them. And when you love them, which means to will their good with a pure heart, you're going to be able to know them better. You're going to be more open to having friends and relationships and everything. And so this is the kind of thing that motivates me. I have a radio show too on Guadalupe Radio, which is a Spanish speaking station in
Mhm.
Los Angeles. So yeah, I mean, I'm doing little things, and I have four grandsons, which
Oh,
is that's the best of the best. That's another way of loving that was unknown to me before this. I didn't know you could love in this way. It's very different. It's so much better than loving your kids. Is loving your
mhm.
grandchildren is pure, and it's just a little bit closer to the divine, than less
Oh my.
responsibility, less worry. It's more like in the moment, in the present. So yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, I
That's
probably forgot
awesome.
something, but yeah, little things here and there. Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting, and I'm going to kind of touch into that loving part and about the difference between like and love and all of that. So, one of the that was probably a couple weeks ago. I just somewhat random. It wasn't random to me, but I said to my wife, I said, what would you say is one of the most surprising things about our relationship over the last, because we've known each other for 38ish years and married for 35, right? And she said, "I didn't realize how much pride you had." And and yes, Esther, I kind of did the, oh, I didn't know
Ooh.
you felt that. But it's interesting as we talked and I reflected and I'm going, you know, she knew. She knew that about me. And yet she still loved me,
Right. Yeah.
right? And
Right.
Esther, it took me a long, I'm still working on it, is to be able to, by the help of the Lord, to like keep that thing in check. But it reminded me about grace. It reminded me about, you know, I all of us have made a ton of mistakes. If you've lived long enough, you're going to have a very
Absolutely.
long
Oh,
list,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But as it relates to that loving thing again, it's one thing to love somebody when they're doing what you want them to do,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
when they're nice, or when they're, you know, everything is lining up.
Yeah.
But it's another thing to love despite. And in many ways, I guess it was her way of saying it's because I could see what you could become, not who you were at that
Right.
time.
Yes.
And so you've encouraged me to put an even greater emphasis on this loving thing. It's powerful. Esther, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. I've enjoyed this immensely. And I hope you'll come back again if we
Yeah.
have you, and to just dispense even more. So for our audience, thank you for tuning in. And we look forward to the next time that we're together. And by the way, we will have Esther's bio and information in the show notes. So no worries there. If there's more you want to learn, ways you could get in contact with her for her work and such. But once again, we appreciate you tuning in. Take
Thank
care.
you so much for having me. It was wonderful. I always enjoy talking about love, but and it was a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Yes, you're welcome.